Soccer 605. We want to welcome you to Coach's Corner. This morning we're visiting with Chris Derry, the President and Director of Coaching for South Dakota United Football Club. Chris, this morning your Facebook page had an intriguing message on it. It said, there's exciting news coming later today. Some big changes coming to SDU. Now, before we get to those, I'm eager to hear about that, but before we get to your exciting news, can you just tell us a little bit more about South Dakota United Football Club? When and why was the club formed?
Club was formed back in 2003, and was formed for the purpose of letting kids get together from all over the state and play together as they wanted, and go to different tournaments or showcases, and play with other guys that loved and played the game like themselves, and see how they could do. And there was all these kids across the state talk to each other via Facebook or texting, or when they get done with games, and they have a mutual respect for each other for the most part when they walk off the field. And for a few years leading up to when I started SDU, I heard from coaches and different kids and everything that this would be kind of, wish we could figure out something to do, an avenue to build for these kids so they could have that opportunity, just see what would happen. And just decided to throw it out there and see what would happen. And it started. And for a few years, we only worked out with U19 teams, girls and boys. And then after the first couple of years, we added a U17 boys team, which worked pretty well. And then, a few years back, all of a sudden, there was an explosion of interest. And I think it came from just the fact that there's more and more people that were seeing the idea that they could be around other families that had the same drive as they did, and the kids could play with other kids that had the same drive as they had. So, that's basically how it all started.
So you've been around for 10 years now, and you mentioned that there is more interest, and that's why you expanded from U19 to some younger ages. What is the overall mission of South Dakota United?
The overall mission is to develop our players both on and off the field, both in the sport of soccer, and also in their personal growth. We want to make sure that the kids are pushed, challenged, and on the soccer field, being pushed and challenged doesn't just mean, you're playing against the best kids and having success. Sometimes it's playing against the best kids and losing and understanding what you have to do to overcome that. And I've been told for years, as a player myself when I was younger and when I went into the military and in my business life, that the only way you get better is to get pushed outside of your comfort zone and make that uncomfortable feeling a comfortable feeling. That's how you grow. And I think with our players, that not only translates on the soccer field, but it translates on in their personal lives. What better way than to take a bunch of kids and put them out there with a bunch of other kids from across the state and allow them to grow and network with each other. And then those kids meet those other kids as friends, and they network with more kids, and all of a sudden you have a thing happening where this kid who's from a town of 14,000 now all of a sudden has friends from all over the entire state, or maybe another state, and that's how you grow. I mean, you get out there, you network, you learn things, you see things, you do things that maybe you never would have done otherwise. And I think for South Dakota United, that's me personally, I think that's our biggest goal.
Now, you mentioned networking in that mission there, and I guess a lot of employers anymore would feel that that's one of the most important skills that a potential employee can have. So it's probably not a bad thing to develop.
It is, and in my business life, along with yours and a lot of other people's, I mean, how do we grow our business? Well, you got to network. You got to be able to have that communication skill. And so much anymore, I see a lot of kids that outside of texting, have a hard time having a face-to-face conversation with people. And to sit there and make them learn how to be a team with kids outside of their comfort zone and learn how to network and adapt to different situations that just helps them to grow and be better people, not only today but for tomorrow.
Okay. Well, speaking of those kids, how many players are in South Dakota United, and where all do they come from?
We have kids in South Dakota United. Let's see, I think we have 120 kids, right around that number. Kids in our club this year range from Minot, North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, to Spearfish, Rapid City, Belfouche, Pierre, Washington Springs, Aberdeen, Watertown, Sioux Falls, Yankton, and Brookings and Mitchell.
Wow.
So we pretty well got the area covered.
There's a few corners of the state that still are left untouched there, it sounds like. Gonna have to reach up to that high northwest and southwest corners. So.
Well, we've had kids from those areas. We just don't have them this year.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, Chris, most clubs do get their players together 2 to 3 times a week for team training. With your players scattered all over the state, how do you get them together for team training and player development?
Team trainings, it's a different dynamic than most traditional clubs use. I would say it's probably most like the ODP program. You know, the ODP program brings in players. They come in for a weekend. They work together. They work on their tactical stuff as a group, their individual technical abilities as a group. I mean, they really come together and work hard. And those kids that are coming in are kids that are, you know, supposedly some of the best kids. So they're doing a lot of work on their own, you hope, and when they come in, you're just refining those tools. And that's kind of what we do. We bring our kids in once a month in the weekend. They'll get, 5, 6 trainings in the weekend. Do we work on the individual fundamentals on that weekend? No. We work on our team tactics. So and I'll get back to the individual fundamentals part, but the team tactics part, you know, you got 5 sessions of working on how we're going to attack, defend, organize, put the ball out of pressure, put other teams under pressure, you know, all those things that teams work on a weekly basis. We do that in one weekend. Then the rest of the time, we have our individual sites set up around the state, and between Pierre and Rapid City, Spearfish, Watertown, Sioux Falls, and those kids come in for those weekends, and at those sessions, obviously because the kids are spread out, we can't work on team tactics. So what do we do in those individual sessions? We work on their technical ability. We work on their individual fundamentals. Because I go back to when I played, and I think about, you know, the things that I wasn't good at. You know, back in those days, I couldn't juggle a soccer ball to save my life. Now I can juggle forever, just from practice and hard work. But those little things of that first touch away from pressure, or, you know, taking a flighted ball out of the air, or proper heading technique, or, I mean, all those things that kids should work on regardless of their age, that's what we focus on in our weekly trainings. And I think kids get a good balance of that between their weekly trainings, and then when we come in for our monthly team sessions, they get their tactical stuff. And I think between the both, you're developing players that, you know, fundamentally become better as individual players, and then tactically, they're being pushed to do things that, you know, are hard. Because the tactics we're working on are for us to be able to play teams that are from those big metropolitan areas, like, you know, St. Louis with Scott Gallagher, or Chicago with the Sockers or the Fire Junior, or, you know, those Colorado Rapids Academy, KCFC, you know, those big clubs that we want to get out there and compete against. That's the only way you can do that. So that's how we're trying to handle our development for our players.
Well, some have said that your players, with them being scattered across the state, you really can't get them together enough to work with them and develop the players. It sounds like you have a plan for that.
We do, and you know, for those outside of our group, I can easily see where they come up with that, and I can understand that. Thought process. But the truth is that the development. Let me rephrase that. The ability for development is there. Now, just like every other soccer coach, you can put the stuff out there and you can make the opportunity happen. Whether or not the kid cashes in on the opportunity, that's something to be said. That's their own choice. And the one thing I think we do pretty well at SDU is if we find players who are not taking advantage of that opportunity on a consistent basis, well, then maybe this isn't the right forum for them, and they're not going to get better. And that doesn't help them any. And that doesn't help us any or themselves. So, the nice thing is that we have players who are constantly wanting to come in and try this. And so we filling teams and filling spots for kids who this isn't their forte. We find other kids that do. The cycle goes on, just like with every coach and every team.
Well, it seems as though your concept has allowed your teams to have had their share of success on the fields. Last year, I know your teams participated in the Midwest Regional League, and you also have some participating this year as well. How have your teams fared in the MRL?
Last year, I think the MRL being our first year doing it, I think a lot of our groups struggled because we, like most South Dakota teams, we aren't used to seeing that level of competition every single time we step out on the field. I think for those of us in South Dakota, I think we get accustomed to playing lesser competition and winning trophies, and we don't challenge ourselves by finding those gains out there that are going to push us and maybe push us outside of our comfort zone, not only as a player but as a coach. And last year, I thought we ran into a little bit of that. We were pushed pretty hard. We had some success out there, but we had some pretty hefty defeats, and that's not a strike against us as a club or a strike against the kids. It's a strike against our culture here in South Dakota. And so this year we've put a couple of teams back in the MRL now with the understanding we have 1 year under their belt. They understand what it takes now, and I think we're finding better games for those kids now. They're adapting after their first year doing it. Now we're in our second year. Our U17 boys are in third place in their division, and the U16 boys are middle to lower part of their pack on their side. But their games have pretty much been one-goal games, with the exception of one. So, they're finding they've changed the culture from last year to just this year. So if we take them and do it again next year, I think it translates into success. It's not a one-year project. You're building for a year or two down the road.
Well, you said. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, you said that your teams are starting to understand what it takes to compete in the MRL. What does it take to compete? Because the MRL, the Midwest Regional League, is a pretty competitive league.
It's a very competitive league, and I think the biggest thing that kids have a hard time understanding is the speed of play. And by speed of play, a lot of people get that misunderstood with how fast you are, and that's not speed of play. Speed of play, in my mind, is how fast you process information. Mm-hmm. And if you're playing a game where you're playing a team that's takes the ball, stops it at their feet, picks their head up, looks around, and then passes the ball, that's pretty dang slow. And in the MRL, those kids, when they get the ball, they've already thought about the next pass and where they're going to move after that pass before the ball's ever gotten to their feet. And that, to me, is the speed of play that here in South Dakota we're still developing, whether you're with SDU, Dakota Alliance, Rushmore, Hub City, or anyone else. We're still developing that speed of play. All of us have some teams that have figured that out, some kids that have figured that out, but none of us are doing it successfully, consistently enough to where we can say that we're there. We're all working to get there, and I think on a continued with the continued process that we're taking, I think you're going to see more success there, not only for SDU but for others.
So you would define speed of play probably not so much as the athletic speed of play, but more of an absence of time to use the technical skills and an absence of time to make tactical decisions. Would that be? I
would agree. I would say that 100%, because I think honestly our kids here in South Dakota, physically wise, match up with just about anybody out there. I think one thing South Dakota has always had that a lot of people have commented on, even from when I started going to regionals back in 2002, 2003, South Dakota kids have heart, and they play with a lot of passion and heart and physicality. And so I don't think that's ever been our problem. Our problem has just been the decision making, and the decision making, the time you have to make that decision when you're playing MRL or at regionals. It's a split second versus, being able to stop the ball, pick your head up, and take 2 or 3 seconds to figure out what you're going to do next. At the next level, you just don't have that.
Soccer intelligence needs to be finely tuned, doesn't it?
It does.
So what are
for all of us, coaches included.
Right. Yeah, and watching high-level games has often been put out there as a good way for players to develop that speed of play and for coaches to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, we're starting to see more and more high-level games available on television for us here in South Dakota and across the country.
Exactly.
Coach Derry, what are some of the other competitions and events that the South Dakota United teams participate in to develop them?
We've this past year we've gone down to Las Vegas to play in the Las Vegas Mayor's Cup, which is considered one of the top tournaments in the nation. And when you step on the field down there, those teams down there are amazing. We've watched teams who are considered the top teams in the nation, including some of the defending national champions from the U.S. National Championship Series. And I think that tournament is not only a heck of a lot of fun, because what a great experience going down to Las Vegas and playing in it, but the level of competition is just amazing. We took 3 teams down there this year. The results weren't there as you would want, but for us to step on the field with those kids who are a lot of them coming out of their high school season or their club season because they play during the winter down south. I thought we fared pretty well and had a good showing in a lot of aspects. Maybe not on the scoreboard sometimes, but if you watch the game, there was a lot of good things to take away from the game, including what I was talking about, the decision making. Mm-hmm. And then we of course participate in the MRL. We've hit tournaments down in Overland Park pretty frequently. Next week we'll be competing over in Denver at the Colorado Showcase Real Cup. We've taken our teams over to Shattuck St. Mary to play in their Adidas Showcase and then their Top Talent Challenge. And of course, you play in your local state cup. Okay.
And speaking of the state cup, you've taken several teams to the U.S. Youth Soccer Midwest Regionals in the past, and in 2012, according to the state website, South Dakota United brought home 5 championships. This year you brought home 1 with your U14 boys Copa team. What was different for South Dakota United teams this year at the 2013 Cup?
Well, I'll tell you what. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. Every year you go out there and you do a lot of prep work to get the kids ready. You do a lot of prep work to get your tactics down. Coaches are ready to go, and this year was a little difficult for all of us. With the snowy spring, canceled a lot of trainings. Just didn't have the ability to get outdoors. We just didn't have the ball bounce our way. I mean, for the U16 girls legacy team, one bad bounce and the ball goes in the back of the net, and then they're playing from behind for a game, and when you're pushing to try to get that equalizing goal, you get countered on. And other than one game, they dominated a lot of the play, I thought. Just that one game, even if they dominated play in that game, they just couldn't get the ball to bounce right for them to go in the net. So take away one game and they're state champs. U17 boys, I've watched a lot of soccer in my life, and to be quite honest, I've never seen a game like that where you have 15 to 17 corner kicks and you can't put one in the net. You shoot on goal how many dozens of times and you can't get one to bounce in, and it bounces off legs and posts, and it just didn't bounce our way. And of course, as you're pushing more and more, you get counterattacked, and that happened to us. We sat back 1 defender, 2 defenders, and pushed everyone else forward and got countered on. So Dakota Alliance took advantage of the bounce. So had to go off to them.
a tough loss for our boys. Definitely, I think they were the better team, but they this weren't the better team that day. Our U16 boys, Dakota Alliance and them have been battling for the last couple of years. Dakota Alliance has gotten the better of them, but a 1-1 game till late in the match, and here comes the ball into our keeper, takes a weird bounce off of those fields, and in the net it goes, and that costs us a game. We lose 2-1. So, and I just think there's a lot of factors that just sometimes work against you, and what do you do about it? You can't really complain about it. You just you wish things would have gone differently, but sometimes you just have some bad luck, and I think we just had some bad luck.
Well, it is what it is, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's why I call it soccer.
Right. So one of the things that was different this year for all the teams at the 2013 State Cup was, instead of going to best 2 out of 3 in some situations, or playing to a championship match, this year was an aggregate scoring. How did you feel about that? Did that? It sounds like it may have worked against you this year. In the 2-team brackets, I've been pushing for years to go to a 2-game aggregate system, or even a 1-game playoff, or a 1-game championship like a lot of other states. But the 2-game aggregate system was one thing I really wanted to see happen. And we got to do it last year for one age division, and everyone liked how it worked. So we adopted it for that 2-team bracket. And then, unfortunately, I think we adopted it too far, for the 3 and 4 team brackets. I'm on the competitive committee with my fellow directors from across the state, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. And the decision was made that this is the way we're going to do it this year. We tried it, and as Rich Jansen said in his interview, it was definitely met with mixed responses. Me personally, I've never been to a tournament where there's a 4-team bracket that there isn't a championship game. And I don't think it's any different in our state cup. They call it a state championship for a reason. You play for a championship. And I think there should be championship games in the 4-team brackets and the 3-team brackets. I've always felt that way, and I still feel that way. But in the 2-team bracket, the goal aggregate system, I think is the right thing to do. If you're not going to play a 1-game championship, then play 2. But the best 2 out of 3. If it went to that 3rd game, the quality of the match was so poor that it wasn't fair to the kids or the coaches, because 2 teams playing each other 3 times in one weekend. By that 3rd game, there was personal battles going on, grudge matches, and regardless of as a coach trying to take it out of the game, it's still there. And when you're dealing with older kids, you can't control some things. So I like the fact that it went to the aggregate for that 2-team bracket, but for the rest of them, I'll see what my fellow directors feel on it. But my philosophy is that there should be a championship game in the 3 and 4 team brackets. Okay, and that seems to be as big as we get in South Dakota as a 4-team bracket at this point in time. But that will be changing eventually, hopefully.
We hope so.
Coach, your Facebook page also indicates that you'll be fielding teams in several age groups in the U14 through the U19 ages in the upcoming year. In fact, just about every age group with the exception of U15 girls, if I read it correctly, and then combining the U18s and 19s. It seems as though that may be an expansion for South Dakota United, is it?
Not really. We had this year U14 boys. We had U13 girls, U14 boys. This year our U15 boys, the numbers weren't there to field the kind of team that we felt needed to be put out there on the field to represent South Dakota, and so we didn't have a team there this year. But we had them there the year before, so that team will be coming back. There's a lot of the kids that couldn't do it this year that are coming back to play next year. So that team will be back. The U16 age, U17 age group, that's Legacy and our Pachuca groups who've been there forever. Last year we had Independence. who, due to some just horrible bad luck at the last minute with injuries and concussions and stuff, couldn't play at State Cup. So they'll be back again next year. And then, of course, our older group, Barcelona, they'll play again next year. And if we'll probably combine the two of them between Arsenal and Barcelona to make a team that is respectable and can go out there and play against the competition needed.
Okay. Well, we've kind of covered the gamut, and I'm still, it's a good thing I wasn't holding my breath. I'd like to get to that exciting news. What are the big changes that's coming for South Dakota United?
Well, the biggest change for us is we're always trying to figure out, the coaches and the administrators are always trying to figure out what can we do to create more soccer for our kids. We work hard to make sure that we work with local organizations and kids play with their local organizations as well as us to make, as much soccer as possible for the kids. And, we're always trying to figure that out. Well, for the past couple of years, we've been chatting about the possibility of expanding our horizons. And because of the way things kind of happened this year and, some of the things that have transpired, we've decided that we're going to expand our horizons by also becoming a member of U.S. Club and joining the ranks of U.S. Club Soccer. And with that, we've been invited by U.S. Club to join their Region 2 tournament over in Illinois in June. So a few of our teams will be taking their abilities and going over and playing in the U.S. Club Region 2 tournament for the first time ever. So some exciting, to me, some exciting horizons that we're taking off on that we've never crossed before. And as far as I know, for South Dakota, no South Dakota team has ever gone to. And this year we're going to be sending a couple teams, and I know our friends over at Tempo Soccer are also sending a team over. So South Dakota now is going to be represented well on the U.S. Club side at their Region 2 tournament. So I feel it's pretty exciting.
Well, that is a big change. What are some of the other differences that you expect to have for your players and your teams with that affiliation with U.S. Club Soccer?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is it opens up another market for us. It opens up more possibilities. I've done my research, and as anybody who knows me knows, before I do anything, I do a lot of research on it. What's the pros, the cons, what's the possibilities, what's the takebacks. And for us, I think the biggest thing is just the fact that it expands the soccer world for us. There's not a lot out there that U.S. Club and U.S. Youth don't do together. They're two completely separate organizations under U.S. Soccer Federation. So if you're a U.S. Club member, you can usually do just about anything a U.S. Youth member can do, or vice versa. But there's a few differences. The one thing that I think I like the best about what U.S. Club does is the fact that we don't have to worry about travel papers. We don't have to worry about a lot of paperwork that we've had to do before to travel and play those tournaments, because U.S. Club is one huge organization all working together to play soccer, and I like that. The individual state organizations are taken out of the mix, and it's just one large organization. You still have your insurance, you still have your rosters, you still have your player passes, you still have all that stuff, but a lot of the other nitpicky stuff is taken out of the mix, which to me is kind of a benefit. And then the other thing I think is probably, I think the biggest thing is that we have a chance to play at more events that we never had before, or didn't know about, or couldn't be a part of. And one of them being, like with the Midwest Regional League and Region 2 tournament for USU Soccer, for U.S. Club, they have their league, which is a national league, and then they have their own regions as well, where the league winners, automatically get berths into the Region 2 tournament, and there's just more. And I think for us as an organization, that's what we want for our kids is more. Here's more opportunities. Whether we take advantage of them or not, that's up to our families and our kids and the coaches. But the opportunity is there now. Now we can say we can do this or we can do this. What's going to work better for us as an organization? And I think that's the ultimate good for the kids that we can do. Ultimate good for the game is we have choices now. Do we want to do this or do we want to do this?
Well, you mentioned Tempo Football Club, and as you know, they were formed as a U.S. Club Soccer youth program.
Mm-hmm.
Your organization, South Dakota United, was formed as a U.S. Youth Soccer affiliate, and now you're going to be affiliated with U.S. Club Soccer. Do you intend to retain your status with U.S. Youth Soccer through South Dakota Soccer Association then?
Yes, we do. Okay. For the time being, we plan on being a member of both. This isn't it's not a new concept. It's not a new philosophy. I know I've talked to several people, directors around the region and around the nation who their clubs are part of both U.S. Club and U.S. Youth. Some of the biggest clubs in the United States are part of both. And then there's some that are just one or the other. And there's a benefit to both. And the biggest benefit is that there's more choices. There's more options. And we're expanding our ability to do more for our kids. And like I said, it's a choice. And the best thing that I think parents and families and kids want nowadays is a choice. And if we can do more for our kids by giving them that choice, then why wouldn't we do it?
I can't argue with that, I guess. So then you'll just use your U.S. Youth Soccer, South Dakota Soccer Association roster for U.S. Youth Soccer events and your U.S. Club roster for U.S. Club Soccer events.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever we need to do. I mean, the U.S. Youth, like I said, U.S. Youth and U.S. Club, you can go to pretty much any U.S. Youth tournament with a U.S. Club roster and vice versa. So really the only thing that on the U.S. Youth side that, we have to worry about having a U.S. Youth roster for is for state cup and regionals. If we choose that that's what we want to do. But again, U.S. Club also has that event. So which one are we going to do? I mean, that'll be something that we talk to our parents about and our kids about and have our team meetings and say, hey, here's the option. We can do this, this, and this. But if that doesn't work well for us, we can do this, this, and this. And that's, again, that's the choice. And that's the choice that we want to be able to give our families and our kids. And, I just think I think there's just too many win-wins with it that you don't take advantage of it. Now, down the road, could that change? Absolutely. We could decide that we want to do one versus the other, or not, or just keep it the way it is. I don't know. Well, I mean, we're stepping out into somewhere right now where no one in South Dakota has ever been.
Well, and as I understand the federation rules, Chris, you can have some teams that are rostered with one or the other. They don't have to be rostered with both, correct?
Correct. That is absolutely correct. And that's something we're going to look at. Are we going to roster our kids with both organizations, both teams, or all of our teams? I don't know. We're going to have our team meetings at the beginning of the year. We're going to figure out the schedule that works best for our players and our parents so they can plan out their entire year. And if that means that it's best for them to do nothing but the U.S. Club side of things and go to the U.S. Club regionals, then that's what they'll do. They won't worry about, going to state cup or that, because maybe it just doesn't work good for the schedules for kids because of track or, other sports. And the nice thing about that is for these kids, and again, this is the choices that I keep referring to, because I like the option of choices. If we have those kids on a team that are registered just with U.S. Club, if those kids want to and they want to play in the state cup, we have one or two from different areas that want to, they can. They can go and register with their with a local team that's under U.S. Youth and go play in that state cup with that team. And it doesn't affect us, and it doesn't affect them. And it just gives them more choice, more options.
Speaking of,
I just think it's an awesome ability.
well, that is big news. That is a big change, and we appreciate you sharing it with us here on Soccer 605. You talked about rostering, and that brings up something else I'd like to just ask your opinion on and see what you think about it. One is, a lot of states have what's called a club pass. That's not been implemented in South Dakota yet, which allows a player or a club to take players that may be younger or maybe on a second team instead of the first team in that age division and move them onto an event roster without having to do guesting for that. What are your thoughts on that? How familiar are you with the club pass system?
I know a lot of states have they have the ability to have a kid who's on multiple competitive rosters. I think we use the term club a little loosely in South Dakota because a club is really a recreational club or a competitive club. I think the word competitive is probably more goes with what we're discussing here. And I think for the competitive kids, if you have kids who want to be on multiple competitive rosters, why not? If your team is challenging at state cup, I'll just use Pierre as an example because that's where I'm at. If we have kids from here in Pierre who want to play on state cup but then also want to play with their local team here, Oahe SC, why should we take away from that? Oahe SC isn't challenging at state cup. So what does it matter if they're also on an Oahe SC roster? I don't see the conflict. If the coaches can work together and communicate with each other and get the family out there and make sure that there's an open line of communication and work together, there's nothing bad that comes from that. You're creating the best of both worlds for a kid. The kid that wants to go play a state cup because he doesn't have any other kids on his team that can do it, so he's getting to go play. And then you're not punishing the local organization because that kid is doing that by making them guest back. Let them play with their local team. Let them play with their local, Oahe SC or Watertown or Yankton or Hub City or whoever. I think letting the kid be able to play on one premier, quote unquote premier type of roster, and by premier I'm using that as a state cup team. So maybe I should say instead of premier, a state cup roster. And let them play on one blue roster team, and then let them play on one local team, competitive team that isn't competing against that.
It's kind of
ironic. Let them have a primary and a secondary.
It's kind of ironic that you would segue from the club pass to the multiple rostering, because we're in the process of putting together a story about that for Soccer 605 and trying to get people to give us their input on it. So that was a timely segue that you did there.
Well, I didn't mean to. I didn't know anything about that, but it's true. I don't understand. I don't understand the ownership part that some people feel. I've never once, if you talk to any of our players, our parents, our families, I or we, as SDU, have never once told a player they can't go back and play with their local teams. We encourage them to. And I think that's what we need more of, is that communication to allow kids to play with both their local teams. And if they want to go and play in State Cup and go do those MRL events or those big higher level events, let them go. But don't punish the local organization by making them guest back. Let them be on that roster too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just nothing more than keeping your I's dotted and your T's crossed and having that open line of communication and making sure you're working together. And according to what I heard on your interview with Rich Jensen, that was one of his goals when he took over as president, is more of us working together.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we do in South Dakota, as you mentioned, is that we're not forbidding players from doing that. They're allowed to play with the other team. They just have to go through a guest process. So we're not banning them from playing with more than one club team, competitive club team. We're just making it a little more difficult paperwork-wise.
Exactly, and I think what you're talking about with the club pass, that takes that away.
Yeah.
You know, let them play. Give them their pass. Let them play with that one team that's playing at the state cup, and then let them play with their local team that maybe is just doing, you know, a couple local tournaments like Rushmore Cup, GASC, Brookings, Yankton, or Hub City. I know all of them have local outdoor tournaments during the summer. Let them go play with their local team on their roster, and don't force them to have to use, you know, do a bunch of paperwork and guess back and ask permission and all that other stuff. Let them do it. You know, that's, to me, it just makes sense.
Well, Coach, we've gone quite a bit over the time I'd asked you for. I appreciate you taking the time. But just want to remind everybody, you heard it here first, the big change coming for South Dakota United. They are going to also become a U.S. Club Soccer affiliated youth soccer program, and we wish you luck with that and look forward to getting updates from you, Coach, as to how that transition or that addition is going to change things for South Dakota United.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to the addition of, you know, more events.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Coach. We'll catch up with you later. Once again, big changes coming at South Dakota United, and you heard it here first on Soccer 605.